I'm just going to wait until more and more people show up. Let me know if you guys can hear me well. I'm going to try to do one of these live feeds at least once a week. If I have something interesting to tell you guys, then maybe twice a week. Hello, Emmanuel Shahid. Where are you from, by the way? Where are you from? Just curious. Very nice. Very good. Yeah, sometimes this mic acts up. I don't know. Do you know how old this mic is? This mic is literally like 10, it's over a decade old. I bought this mic in 2009. So it's a 21-year-old mic. Or no, not a 11-year-old. Sorry. Born and raised in Jersey. Cool, cool. What's up, Sean? Currently in Michigan. Cool. I've only been to Michigan one time. I had an interesting experience when I was in Michigan. Some guy started screaming at me because I said something nice about the Catholic Church, and he said that he would beat me up. He was like 60-something years old, and he was saying that he could beat me up because he exercised for an hour every single day. Funny story. Got 7 people. It's practically a party now. So, yeah. So I just got done reading book 6 of Josephus's History on the Roman-Jewish Conflict. Thought I would talk about that with you guys. And it's very interesting. So the general Titus, who would soon be Caesar, he eventually destroys the temple. He doesn't want to destroy the temple, but he has no choice because the Jewish rebels are using the temple as a base for their weapons, their catapults, their missiles. And so they hit the temple really, really hard. Hello, Hess. They hit the temple really hard. And then they started to burn the temple. The Jews had already started a fire within the temple because they were using one part of the temple. The temple was flipping huge. It was like as big as a football field, maybe even bigger. Hello, Frank Villardo. Well, we're talking about Josephus right now, so you're in for a treat. So Josephus tells us that the Jews used a section of the temple as a place to ambush Roman soldiers. Most of the Roman soldiers didn't fall for it, but enough of them did. They go into this part of the temple. They see a bunch of Jewish rebels there. They don't really understand why the Jewish rebels have covered the walls in bitumen. Jews run away, light the place on fire. A bunch of Roman soldiers get burned alive. From Canada, cool. And the Roman soldiers simply took that fire and spread it around. So the Jews set up their own fire, trying to kill Roman soldiers. Little did they know that that fire would be used as a weapon against the temple. So that's what happened. And Titus simply finished the job. The soldiers started to destroy the temple, and they killed everyone that they saw. Thousands of people were butchered. More so were killed by starvation. And the rabbis in the synagogue, the rabbis in the temple, they know that it's over. So they run to Titus and they beg him for mercy. And Titus tells the rabbis, and this is super, super interesting. The rabbis beg for their lives, and Titus tells the rabbis the time for pardon is over. And he has all the rabbis killed. Good evening, Matt. Hello, Jason. So he has all the rabbis killed, and he tells the rabbis something really interesting. He tells them, I'm going to cover these blinds here. He tells them, now that your temple is destroyed, there really is no purpose for your existence. He tells them, since the temple has been destroyed and you're the priest of the temple, then you should be destroyed with it. That's what Titus tells them. And he has them all killed. And there is something almost prophetic about this. It's almost as if the emperor is saying, in a moment of inadvertent inspiration, that your priesthood is dead. There's no use for its existence. And he has the priests killed. In other words, it's almost like it was marking the end of the Jewish priesthood. The temple was destroyed. The priesthood is now destroyed. And that's it. And Titus then tells them that your temple is gone. It's no longer in your hands. The city of Jerusalem is no longer in your hands. This is what he tells them. So the Arab Jews, they give up and they surrender to the emperor, and he has mercy on them. But there are 8,000 Jews, over 8,000 Jews that are hiding in the in the royal castle in the city of Jerusalem. The Jewish rebels go into this castle and they butchered all the Jews inside. So they killed their own Jews, over 8,000 people, and then stole whatever they could find in the clothes of those that they had just murdered. This was not a war of just Jew versus Roman. This is what people need to understand. This wasn't just, we're Jews, we're going to defend ourselves, we're going to defend our people. No, it was a bunch of people looking after their own interest, using their own people either as a means to an end to defeat Rome so that they could take power, or using the Jews for their own sadistic bloodlust and for their own rapine and thievery, because these rebels they didn't hesitate to murder their own and to steal the property of their own people. The Jews, the Jewish rebel faction, I don't want to say the Jews because there were so many Jews who wanted nothing to do with this war, but I'll say that the rebel faction put up their last attempt at fighting the Romans. It was the last stand. The last stand was eventually squashed, and the Romans vanquished the last remnant of the rebels. And then what eventually happened was the Caesar appointed a man named Fronto. Fronto, very Italian sounding name. Fronto was a very close friend of Titus, and Titus commissioned him to basically decide the fate of the survivors. And this is basically how it went down. And Titus did have an influence. He had a say on this as well. The elderly automatically killed. The infirm, the sick, automatically killed. Those who were under 17 were to be sent to Egypt to work as slaves in the mines. And then the really good-looking people were to be used as trophies to parade around in their victory march. And then the rest were basically sent off to the arenas to be eaten by lions, fed to the lions, and to be slaughtered by gladiators. Basically, the movie Gladiator was pretty accurate. I mean, that's just how it worked. It was very brutal. If you have not seen the movie Barabbas, I recommend that you all do. That is a masterpiece of a film that came out in the 1960s, 1970s, I want to say. It stars Anthony Quinn. It's a brilliant masterpiece of a film, and I would definitely recommend all of you guys to watch it. Barabbas. That film is very accurate as to the brutality of the Roman Empire. Barabbas is a Jewish ruffian who is a part of a gang of thieves. He eventually gets arrested by the Roman state and is sent to work as a slave in the mines. And he works for years under the ground, and it's absolutely nightmarish what this man has to go through. And then he goes eventually he gets sold off to be a gladiator in the Colosseum. And that's a whole other dimension of brutality. And then he eventually wins his free. I mean, I'm not going to spoil the whole film for you, but it's just a masterpiece of a film. In some ways, it's better than Gladiator, even though it's an older film and the quality is not as good. But it's just what the film portrays as far as slavery and gladiatorial matches go. It's just a very well done movie, especially given the time that it was made. Do you think that this was God's wrath on the Jewish nation and the people for not accepting his son? Or do you think it would be an affront to continue to sacrifice animals? Yes, I believe that it was definitely a punishment. I mean, Jesus made it very clear. He said, the temple's going down. All these buildings are going down. All these edifices are going down. He essentially said to the priests of Israel that your days are numbered. That's why the priests hated him so much. Remember that story where Jesus goes to the cornfield? Really, it was a wheat field, but for some reason, English translations render it as cornfield. But remember, he goes to the wheat field with his disciples, and he gives his disciples wheat. And the rabbis come and they say, "Oh, what are you doing? You're picking wheat on the Sabbath." And Jesus said something like, "The Sabbath is not made for man is not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath for man." Basically, and then the fact that he gives his disciples wheat, that's symbolic of the Eucharist, presaging the Eucharist, essentially presaging the new sacrifice, and essentially presaging the end of the animal sacrifices of the temple. And Christ basically telling the priests, your days are numbered. Your priesthood is numbered. And that priesthood was destroyed when the temple was destroyed. Because once you destroy the temple, then there is no priesthood. All of these rabbis that you see today, they're just attempting at trying to continue Judaism. But yet again, you have Reformed Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, and they all hate each other. So which one is the priesthood? And they're not really priests. I mean, you can call them rabbis in the sense that they're teachers and they have their own interpretations of the Bible, but they're not priests. There's no animal sacrifices. There's no animal sacrifices in Judaism. Why not? Because their temple is gone. What does that signify, really, ultimately? It's that their priesthood is gone. There is no Jewish priesthood. It was destroyed. And that's why when you look at that story where Titus is talking to the rabbis, the priests are begging for their lives. And Titus says, the days of pardon are over. Now that the temple is destroyed, the priesthood for the temple must also be destroyed, essentially marking the end of the Jewish priesthood. Hello, Christian King, or Christ is King. Do you think that God used Rome and its army to destroy the temple? Yes, I do. In fact, Josephus says numerous times that God used the Romans to destroy the temple. He says this numerous times in his book. Have you ever watched the series playing on YouTube titled The Chosen? It is one of the best representations of Christ, the gospel, and disciples I've ever seen. I will definitely look it up. Thank you, Frank. Theodore, what is your opinion on the claims of historical Jewish subterfuge, which leads to them being expelled from many nations, like the claim of blood libel? Why so much taboo? What should we believe? I don't understand. Are you talking about why are Jews hated all over the world? Or why are Jews kicked out? Or why have Jews been kicked out by numerous countries? I don't know. I need you to be a little bit more specific. Do you have any money in crypto? No, I don't. Do you think the fulfillment of Gentiles is going to end, which means salvation or Gentile world is over, in my opinion? Do you think the fulfillment of Gentiles is going to end? I think it's okay. So Joshua, let me first answer your question, then I'll go to Christ is King. So this is what I believe, and this is really the ultimate message of as to why I'm reading this book. So Jesus tells the Jews, okay, your days are numbered. Your priesthood is, the days of your priesthood is numbered. And the priesthood of the Jews is eventually destroyed by the Romans. So the Romans take over Jerusalem. And there's a very interesting story where Titus is speaking to a priest. He didn't kill all the priests. He just killed a lot of them. But there was one priest by the name of Jesus. Yes, his name was Jesus. Jesus was obviously a common name in those days. But this priest named Jesus, he told the Caesar, if you spare me my life, I'll give you some valuables from the temple. Titus says, okay, give me something valuable. So he gives Titus these 2 giant candlesticks from the temple. And the candlestick, in a way, is it's almost like a symbol of divine right or divinely given authority. And it's almost like the authority of the temple was given over to Rome. And Christianity would eventually extend into Europe, and the headquarters for the church for a very long time would be Rome. This is, of course, before the Eastern Schism. And that authority would transition to Rome, and the church would be headquartered in Rome. And St. Paul writes a letter to the Romans. Now, when you read, that Paul wrote a letter to the Romans, it's not like he's writing a letter to all the Romans. He's writing a letter to the Church of Rome, the Vatican, essentially. And Paul says in his letter, in the beginning, he says, to all those who be in Rome, destined to be saints, beloved of God, etc. He gives this very nice introduction, but then he starts talking about a warning against what? A warning against homosexuality. And he's telling the Romans, homosexuality is evil, etc. And this is in the first chapter of Romans. And it's almost like Paul knew that there was a problem in the Roman church. Like, you guys come from Roman culture where homosexuality is very common, and don't go back into it. And he warned against it. He warned against it. And what is the Roman church today going into? What has it already fallen into? It's fallen into Sodom. That's why you got all these predator priests in the Roman church. And Paul warns against this, and he talks about the destruction to come. So just as when Christ was on earth, the Jewish priesthood was about to end, soon the priesthood of the Christians in Rome is also eventually going to end. Because the Jews, they were messing up. They were going down the road to perdition, and they did. They went down that road of perdition. And the Christian church is going down that road. It's going down the road of the Pharisees. So the priesthood of the Catholic Church is numbered. And remember, Constantinople was the city of the Eastern Church at one point in time. It still is to a certain extent, but it was taken over by the Muslims. The Hagia Sophia, the main church of Eastern Christianity, it's no longer a church. It's no longer a church. It's a mosque. And I knew years ago, a Greek Orthodox priest. I think he was living in Rhode Island, somewhere, Staten Island. He was living in the East Coast somewhere. And he told me that he had taken a trip to Istanbul. And he wanted to enter the Hagia Sophia, and he was wearing his priestly garments. And a police officer was present there, and he said, "Nope, you can't go in." "Why not?" "Nope, you can't go in dressed like that." "Why?" "It's no longer a church. And if you want to go into that place with those garments, what you're essentially saying is that this is still a church. And we can't allow that kind of image to percolate through." So that's really telling. It really tells us that it's no longer a church. The main church of the Eastern Orthodox world was taken away, just as the temple was taken away and destroyed. And I think soon the Vatican is going to face the same sort of perdition, the same sort of destruction. Who's going to do the destroying? I can't say for certain, but I suspect it's going to be the Germans. Let's see, what else we got here? What is your opinion of Emperor Hadrian? I haven't really researched much on him, so I can't really give an opinion. Okay, so to Christ is King. It's definitely true that that Jews have been thrown out of numerous places. I mean, it's an historical fact. You can read all about it. That's why they made the state of Israel. The state of Israel was created so that Jews could have a place to live without having to worry about being persecuted. That's why the state of Israel was created. And it's a completely legitimate reason. You know, they went through the Holocaust. They were almost exterminated, and then the Americans said, "Okay, give them Israel." Makes sense. Orthodox brother here, love your content. Thank you very much. Grand Celestial Knight. Only priests can serve in the temple of God, so their sacrifices would have been seen as an affront to the death of the Lamb of God. I agree. Ted, do you believe we must be born again? Yeah, I do. On the left side is your mother, and on the right side stand 100 children. Which one of them would you help from death? Your mother or the 100 children? Both weren't possible. I don't know what this has to do with anything I'm saying. On the second revolt, do you believe the revolt was justified, or what significance did it serve? The measures taken were harsh but necessary to keep the province in check. I do not think the revolt was justifiable, and Josephus makes it very clear. The Jews had been wanting to revolt for a very long time, and they were looking for an opportunity, you know. And there was a civil war that went on in Rome, and eventually Titus and his father Vespasian won the civil war. And once they took the throne, that's when the Jews revolted, because it was at a time of instability, really. The people who did the revolt were absolute scoundrels. The people who led the revolt were scoundrels. These were false messiahs, false prophets. They were extremely violent. They murdered their own people. They massacred their own people in many instances. They killed anyone who disagreed with them. Their obstinance was so extreme that they just eventually forced the city of Jerusalem into a complete and utter famine where thousands upon thousands of people starved to death. So no, I don't think it was justified at all. I think it was completely evil. And if they had just listened to Christ and gave unto God what belonged to God, and what to Caesar what belonged to Caesar, they would have been fine. There was some issues. There was marauders who were going around robbing people. But I think that the people who led the revolt, they were also thieves and robbers, and they basically did the same thing. That they basically did the very crimes that they accused their enemies of doing. So I don't really see anything glorious or admirable about the Jewish revolt. The ultimate irony that the Church of Christ became the Holy Roman Catholic Church, not a coincidence. He conquered the very people who persecuted him. Yep. Absolutely. And the people who conquered Judea would eventually become members of the Roman Church. So that authority went from Jerusalem to Rome, and Rome is on its way to becoming the next Jerusalem. Let me see here. Do you think now God is focusing more attention bringing salvation Jews that are open-minded? I don't know. They are Jews who are converting to Christianity. They are a minority, but they are there, and I wish them all the best. Turkey has nuclear weapons now. That proves to me we're probably going to go to war. Probably, yeah. I hope not, though. What am I drinking? Orange juice. You have a lot of Indians that respect your work, Theodore. Keep it up. Do you have a Patreon? No, no Patreon. No, I'm good, man. But I really appreciate your guys' support. Bring on more people to listen to this channel. Tell your friends about me. Interesting commentary as always. Thank you very much, Amanda. God told Israel they would be first if they would obey God, or if they didn't obey, they would be the least among nations. Yeah, and Moses also warned them in the book of Deuteronomy that if they rejected God's laws, he would have them sold to their enemies. And that's exactly what happened in the Roman-Jewish conflict. The Romans sold them as slaves. Yep, I agree, Julius. You see that same sort of political fanaticism in the political in the climate we're living in. You have the zealots in ancient Israel, and then you also have the Orthodox. Today we have the left-wing nuts, the right-wing nuts, and then you also have like the trad fanatics, the trad lunatics, and those people are basically like the Pharisees. Turkey has had nuclear weapons since the Cold War. The USA actually put them there because of, yes, I know, it's a Cold War policy, but it could get into the wrong hands. I assume most people in the chat are Roman Catholic. No idea. You have Zele? I don't know what that is. But anyway, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer all of them. Yesterday, I did not do a video. I wanted to do this live stream, but I spent like 4 hours cleaning up my chicken coop, and it was so annoying. But I had to do it. Oh, it's like PayPal. No, I don't have that. Is it good though? Do you recommend it? But yeah, I spent a long time, but I felt pretty happy that I cleaned my coop up. It needed some cleaning. It was kind of dirty. No fees. Oh, cool. I'll look into that. This is the very first time I wear this hat after like almost a decade of vlogging. I used to wear this hat when I did videos back in the day when my channel had all sorts of views and I had a lot of subscribers and I had a lot of people following me and a lot of people angry at me as well. So I used to wear this hat. Now, why did I wear this hat? It's kind of foolish, I'll be honest with you, to wear a hat indoors. There's no point in wearing a hat indoors. There's no sunlight. But it's a fashion thing. It's a fashion preference, if you will. But the reason why I'm wearing it is because it reminds me of my old days of making videos where I didn't really care about these rules, and I wasn't so self-conscientious about things like that. And I thought it was cool to wear a hat like this while talking to a mic because it reminded me of Michael Savage. I don't know if you guys remember Michael Savage, but very big radio host in the Bay Area. When I lived in the Bay Area, I used to listen to him every day, especially after school. I used to argue with a lot of liberal students and liberal teachers. So after school, listening to Michael Savage, it was very refreshing because he was very right-wing, very conservative. Not like right-wing. I'm not saying he's a Nazi, but you know, he was on the right-wing spectrum of things. And it was just great, you know, and he used to wear hats like this while he talked on the mic. It was really fun to watch him talk, listen to him talk. Michael Savage has a very good radio voice. He probably has the best of all the radio voices that I've heard. So when I used to do YouTube videos, you know, I was very controversial. I started YouTubing when I was in high school. So that's how long I've been YouTubing. I'm trying to get this. Let me try to extend this mic out a little bit here. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. Oh, that's cool. So I started YouTubing. Oh man. I started YouTubing. Let me know if you guys can hear me well. I started YouTubing when I was in high school. I heard about YouTube when I was a sophomore in high school. It came out when I was a sophomore in high school. So everybody heard about it. Everybody was going on YouTube. And YouTube was awesome because I could listen to all the music I wanted to. And I didn't have to go look. Remember the days when you had to go on, like, what was it, Windows search or something? You go out, or you go on Lime. Remember Limelight? Was it LimeWire? Limelight? You basically used to get free music on there. Try to adjust this thing. How do I do this? Dang it. I'll just put it back. But yeah, I remember the days of LimeWire, Limelight, or whatever. I used to get free music. And then YouTube came out. And so I just started listening to YouTube. That's all I did. LimeWire, yep. So I started, when I was a junior. Was it a junior? Yeah, I want to say when I was a junior in high school, I said, you know what? I'm going to start blogging. I'm going to start YouTubing. So I got on YouTube. I made my first little channel. I think it was called T Shoebot. And then I made a couple of videos on the founding fathers. Those were essentially my first videos. And it's crazy because in those days, there wasn't as many people YouTubing as now, obviously. So I remember I did a video on the founding fathers, and it was why the founding fathers, they wanted a Christian society. And I pulled out some quotes from the founding fathers on America being, the importance of America being a religious society. And I remember I posted up the video. It took me several hours to do it because I had to record it. And then I had to read the quotes, and I posted photos. I just recorded my voice. I didn't use a camera. And then I just posted photos of the founding fathers as I was talking. And the video was maybe like 15 minutes long. And I remember I uploaded the video, and then I went to the YMCA to exercise. I used to go to the YMCA to exercise. And then I came back home and checked out. I was like, oh, how many views does it have? And it had like 20 views or something. And I said, man, why isn't this video getting views? So I changed the tags. I started putting tags in. And then I came back, and the views were just pop, 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 pop. And it was very overwhelming. And all of a sudden I got 20,000 views, 30,000. It eventually went up to, I want to say, like 145,000 views. So I said, oh, wow, this is crazy. So I did a part 2 to my video. And the part 2 didn't get as many subscribers, or didn't get as many views as the first one. So then I kind of stopped YouTubing, and I started blogging. I started writing articles, and I had a blog. It was called the Tedland Daily. You can actually look it up. It's still on Google. Tedland, 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 like Scotland, but put Ted instead of Scott. Tedland Daily was my first blog. I'm pretty sure it's still up there. Although I wouldn't even know how to sign into it. I completely forgot what the username and password is. But it was a part of the Blogspot sphere. And it was a lot of fun. I was writing about Islam and drugs and why people shouldn't take drugs, and then I did a little bit more YouTube. I started doing videos where I would just have pictures and music because I thought it was cool. I still think that thing is pretty cool, but I'm much better at doing it now. And then I started getting atheists attacking me. And then I did this video on why evolutionism is false. And it was a really quick video. And basically all I did was I put some sentences up on the screen with techno music. And it was something like, Darwin taught that all of humanity came from one cell. It was the very first cell. And I said, but if matter cannot be created, as are the laws of physics, as in the laws of physics, then where did this cell come from, and how could the cell create itself? So I said that evolutionism is basically absurd. And so I started getting atheists attacking me. So, and then I just stopped YouTubing for years. And then when I started seriously blogging in 2013. And then when that happened, I started going on YouTube again. I got back on my old channel. I started doing videos again. And then I changed the channel's name to Theodore Shubot. And it just, I eventually, after maybe like 2 years of YouTube being on that, I had over 5,000 subscribers, close to 6,000 subscribers. YouTube eventually took it down. And then I did a second channel. And that channel was really popular in Poland because I did a video on Poland and why Israel's accusation of Israel's insistence on calling concentration camps Polish death camps is wrong. So all these Polish people started following me. And YouTube, I remember the analytics was telling me that most of my audience was in Poland, which I thought was pretty cool. And I had all these Polish people writing me, and that was really fun. So I continued doing videos, and then eventually YouTube took that one down. So now I got this one, and this is the one that you're watching now. But when I first started YouTubing seriously in 2013, 2014, I was really good at trolling people. I was very adamant about trolling people and saying very controversial things because I wanted to, I really wanted to gain that attention. I wanted to gain that attention from my enemies, and I wanted them, and I knew, and I know people, you're going to say, "Oh, Ted, you're shameless to say these things." It's just the reality, though. That's the thing. It's the reality. Like, why do you do videos? You do videos because you want to get a message out, right? How do you get that message out? How do you get that message out? You got to be marketable. How do you marketable? Controversy is very marketable. So that's what I did. That was very controversial. And now I'm not as controversial because I'm not too crazy about provoking people like I used to be. And now I'm more interested in just being more intellectual, probably. Anyway, I'll try to get to your guys' questions here. Let me see what you guys wrote here. Have you read the Book of Mormon? Hold on. The garden is doing okay. I actually did a video on it today. I'll upload it later on. I was a Protestant before. That was 7 years ago. Glad you are seeing a different perspective. Not all Roman Catholics are bad. I was raised to think this way. Hell Across the Border was an eye-opener. Yeah, I'm glad you think so, man. I put a lot of effort in that documentary, and I interviewed a lot of people, and it was a lot of work. It took me almost a year to finish that documentary. And that was like on top of, I was doing the documentary, and then on top of that, I had to do website work. On top of that, I had to do videos, and I was interviewing different people in Mexico, and I was writing articles. Like, man, it's nonstop. I'm never not busy. Like, I'm always busy. And even when I take the time to relax, oh my God, it just like triggers anxiousness in me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to relax. I'm just going to sit and watch a movie, or I'm going to play some video games or something, or I'm going to talk to a friend, just relax, just chill, to use a millennial term. And it just kind of triggers a little bit of anxiousness in me because the back of my mind, it's like, you could be writing something. You could be doing a video. You could be reading this. You could be whatever. And it's like, oh God. So I never stop working. Even today, Have you read the Book of Mormon, and what's the best way to approach them with the gospel? They tend to downplay the consequences of denying the Trinity. I tried reading the Book of Mormon years ago at a hotel where the Book of Mormon was present in the hotel drawer. Thought it was a very boring and tedious and monotonous book. It uses the word wherefore way too much. How do you reach out to Mormons? Okay, I'm going to say, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't think this is a little bit triggering for some, but I don't think we're in the age of evangelization like it was in the time of Paul. So the time of Paul, you had pagans who never heard about God, never heard about Jesus, and yes, preached to those people because they never heard about God. But you're talking about people who've heard about Christ, who've heard about God, albeit they have a misinterpretation on Christ. They still have heard of Christ, yet they worship a false Christ. People who worship a false Christ are nearly impossible to convince because you believe in Christ and you have the correct interpretation, but you want to. It's not like it's not the same as preaching to someone who worships Zeus and that's all he knows. You're talking to someone who has an interpretation on Christ, and you're trying to convince them that your interpretation of Christ is correct, and they're going to believe that their interpretation is supreme, and they're going to be stuck on their ways. I would not go out of your way to preach to people who've heard about Christ. It's just unless they come to you. Now, if a Mormon comes to you arguing with you, then by all means. But if you're going to go out of your way to preach to some Mormon guy who you know is stuck on his ways, I mean, if you want to do it for fun, like if you want to do it because you enjoy arguing and you enjoy theological discussions and debates, then by all means do so. But if you want to try to witness to the person, you're throwing your pearls before swine. Now, with that said, I will tell you what I would tell a Mormon. So here's a very, very effective and simple argument on how to deal with Mormons, and this works really with any cult. Mormon, Mr. Mormon, where is your church found in history? Simple. Because when I look at documents that are close to the time of Christ, I'm looking at the Didache, I'm looking at Saint Clement of Rome, I'm looking at various different saints who lived in the time of Saint John, and they all talk about Christ as God. They talk about the church, they talk about priests, they talk about the Eucharist. Where's the Mormon church in history? Show it to me. Can you prove a succession through historical documentation from the time of Christ to now? You can do that with the Catholic Church. You can do that with the Orthodox Church. You can't do that with the Mormon Church. That's how I would deal with Mormon. If you look at it's a Clement of Rome, and who else is it? It's Clement of Rome, and it's there was another one. Let me see here. Hold on. It's a Clement of Rome, and okay, yes. If you look at the writings of Clement of Rome, Polycarp, and Ignatius, you will find that the divinity of Christ is withheld. It's not withheld; it's upheld. Clement of Rome believed that Christ is divine, is God, and the Trinity was definitely taught by ancient Christians. But you don't find that. You don't find Mormonism you don't find Mormonism documented in antiquity. Mormonism didn't pop up until some alcoholic named Joseph Smith in New York popped up. The hat looks good. Thank you. Got this at Nordstrom. A Zedefacantist told me it must be hard for me to be Catholic because I was born into it. What a joke. This individual was not even a Catholic for a year. Interesting. I remember him. He used to get angry if you asked him, how are you? Yeah, he did. If you ever called up the Michael Savage show and you said, hey, Michael, how are you? He go, don't ask me how I'm doing. I remember one time this guy called up Michael Savage and he said, hey, Michael, you're a great American. Get off my show. Don't you ever call me that. Don't you call on my show, oh, you're a great American. This isn't the Mark Levine show. He used to hate Mark Levine. What else do we got here? I used to listen to Michael Savage too back in my high school days. He used to say some crazy stuff. Yeah, he did. I stopped listening to him. I stopped listening to him regularly when he began to promote racist views, like the Jews have an inherited superior intelligence. I think that's just eugenic crazy talk. But that's the danger with the right wing. They fall into that kind of stuff. I love my faith. Went to cathedral today. That's great. I use I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses with me. Are my glasses here? I don't know. I don't know where my glasses went. I'm gonna hold on a second. Now I'm getting old. I'm elderly now. All right. I literally just used the magnifying function. I am officially an old man. I'm getting old, man. Look at me. I look like some Jew in New York. That's it. I'm getting old, man. I need a new mic. What's wrong with this one? I got this mic in 2009. I use equine pelletizer bedding. Oh, okay. I use sawdust. Sawdust works really well with chickens. Better than anything I've ever used before. I used hay and I've used alfalfa. And they both work fine, but I think sawdust works really well because when you want to spread the chicken manure in the garden, you can spread it around pretty easily. I used to love when you and your dad would be on Savage. I don't know, good times. The good days of the internet where you can look anything up and it won't be. Yeah, I remember back in the day, I would Google stuff, and what you searched for, you got. Like you Googled something and you got the results. And now you search for something on Google and you get a bunch of advertisements and a bunch of stuff you never searched for. Never searched for. You never searched for it. I didn't search for this. Like I'll be looking for stuff on, I don't know. I'll be looking for stuff on anti-Semitism in Germany or something, and it's like the history of this, the history of that. I didn't ask for this. Sorry, from Tractor Supply. It turns into sawdust when they urinate on. Oh, okay, cool. I use it in my cat's litter boxes. They then bury in my yard. I take the poop out through. That's nice. LimeWire and Napster. Yep. How do we call in? I keep telling myself this. I keep telling myself I'm gonna get StreamYard so I can get people calling in again because Discord didn't really work that well. People's voices didn't really sound great. Did you name your chickens? I named some of them. Like there's one chicken that's constantly curious. I call her Intuitive. And then I have one chicken who loves kombucha, so I named her Booch. I have another chicken who I named Betty. Got another chicken named Rosalva. I have one chicken that she is always sitting on the eggs, so I call her Mother Superior. The rooster, I named him Donald. Zev Porat, I will look him up. I used to watch her channel before YouTube banned. Yeah, great channel, I must say. It was a lot of fun. Everybody, we all can have our own denominations and traditions, but we should unite around our core values in the gospel. I agree. Ted Shubot, yep. Denominations are the adversary way of dividing us. Will Pope Mark's Satan die this year? I have no idea. I'm actually the opposite. Started as a Catholic, then to Protestant. I still respect Catholicism because my father's side is Catholic and my mom is Lutheran. Ted, I know you don't debate Orthodox, but would you bring an Orthodox on your channel for theological discussions, not debates? For theological discussions, sure. No, I have no issue with doing that. Jason, follow Jesus. All the major churches and denominations follow Jesus if they are truly Christian. We need to get over our personal arrogance. I agree to a great extent. Jesus said, "Follow me, not denominations." Okay. Anything new on Heather Green? Nope. Nothing new. I have been following you since like 2013 or 2014 when you started blogging. Oh, cool. So you're one of the OGs. What was one of your, like, one of my older videos? What's an older video that I did that you remember, or what's a video that I did in the past that you really liked? I'm curious to know. Jason, and there you guys are arguing amongst each other. I see Milo is back on church militant now that he is formally gay. What are your thoughts? I think it's complete bullshit. I don't agree with any of it. I think that Voris is a snake. I think that Milo is an obvious snake. I don't trust any of these people. Here's the thing is, when you've been around the speaking business, there's a lot of bullshit. A lot. People lie just to get ahead. People lie to get money. People lie to get fame. I've seen it with my own eyes. People will say all sorts of crazy things on the internet to get attention. I knew a guy years ago who said that we should ban Islam from society. And then when it came to him losing his money source, he said that he didn't want to do that no more, and he never. And I asked him, I said, "Well, didn't you say these things?" And he said, "No comment." Those were his exact words. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on. I remember years ago, some evangelical Christians were doing a documentary on the gay agenda, and they asked me if they could put clips of my video calling up gay bakeries on their documentary. So I said, "Yeah, go ahead. I don't care." So they did the documentary, and the lady who created it or who directed it, she sent it to me, and she said, "Thank you so much. You're awesome." I said, "Great." And I watched the documentary. I thought it was really cool. It was well done, well produced. They interviewed a lot of known people, Mike Huckabee, etc. And then the lady who made the video, the one who directed it, she contacted me telling me that I need to recant the things that I've said. And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, because now we just figured out that you're this controversial character. And I didn't know you were this controversial character." And I'm like, "Well, who let the dog out? You know?" Like, you didn't know that I was this controversial character? Yeah, I didn't know. So now we're afraid of bad publicity. And she says, "If you don't take it out, it's going to cost me $15,000 to edit you out." And I said, "Well, pay the 15 grand because I'm not recanting shit." That was it. So I've seen all sorts of stuff. Most people that you see in this business of talking, that's what I call it. It's just you're talking for a living. Most of the people that you see who are in this business are full of shit. Most of the people in this business are full of shit. I don't care who it is. Dennis Prager, Mark Rubin, Schmubin, Milo, Pilo, Kirk, Schmirk, Schmuck, Charlie, Kirk, Shapiro, Ben. They're all full of shit. All these people. Because most people are full of shit. And there's very, very few people that you will meet in this business who are sincere. There are very few people in this business who are sincere. Because most people, for example, let's say most of society is against Sodom. So they'll be hardcore against the gay agenda. Then Milo pops up. All of a sudden, Sodom is fashionable. Those people will start counting down to Sodom. You saw this with Michael Voris, okay? So I don't believe any of it. Out of all the work that I've done, out of all the people that I've met in this type of work, there's only one guy that I know that I've met that is sincere, and his name is Jeremy de los Santos. He's a sincere dude. I've known him for a while. I did a documentary on him years ago. He was a street preacher. He's a street preacher from New Mexico, and he's a very sincere person. He really believes in what he does. Peter, go. When I exposed the Duggars, yep, good times. What is my opinion on Michael Savage? I think Michael Savage. Okay, I'll say that Michael Savage, to a great extent, is a sincere person. I don't know him personally, but I get the feeling that he's a sincere person. But he's kind of a maniac. Simple as that. He's a little manic. Not a little. He's very manic. And he's very intelligent, very funny guy, very good at talking. But he's manic. He's a manic guy, and the problem with him is because he's not really he doesn't have the Christian faith. He can waver into dangerous ideologies, and that's why, for example, he came out and started talking some Amrin bullcrap about how Jews are more intelligent than other people, and it's just crazy to me. What is your take on veganism? Why do they argue that the meat we eat is not good food? I think if you want to eat a vegetarian diet, that's fine. I mean, I think at times abstaining from meat is actually really refreshing, lightens you up. I would say that veganism it's not the same thing as vegetarianism, because veganism is no animal products. With vegetarianism, you can still eat eggs, you can eat pasta. Veganism is a whole other level of craziness, and I think it's just insane. There's a lot of, for one thing, is in terms of health, there are a lot of vitamins in eggs that you really can't get in great abundance in other types of food, in plant food, that is plant-based food. I think that you need a balance. I think veganism is an extreme, just as carnivorism is another extreme. There's people who say no plants, nothing, just eat meat. And Jordan Peterson has really been advocating for this. I think that it's crazy. There's a certain level of nutrition that you get from eating vegetables, eating plants, and eating herbs that are really helpful that you can't find in just meat. And there are things in meat that you can't get in plants. You need both. Veganism is absolutely crazy because I think the problem with veganism is that it exhausts you. It's exhausting to be vegan. It really is. Imagine every day, like I see these videos on YouTube of people making like vegan sausage, vegan eggs. I mean, imagine having to prep that, Imagine prepping vegan eggs. I mean, it takes hours to make fake eggs. Hours. Imagine like once a week having to prep your fake eggs, once a week having to prep your fake sausage, once a week. And then, I can just buy some. And then it's very expensive. So you're putting all this money in fake food. It's not real food. It's crap. Now, if you want to go vegetarian, where you eat your eggs, but you're just not going to eat animal flesh, I think that's actually it's not really a terrible idea. You can live a really healthy way without eating much meat. I think the people who really mastered vegetarianism were Middle Eastern people. People talk about the Indians, but no, Middle Eastern people mastered vegetarian food because the Middle Eastern diet is mainly plant-based. You're talking about hummus and eggplant, baba ganoush, falafel. I mean, most of the stuff is just plant-based. It's legume-based diet, and there's not. And when my dad was growing up in Israel, they didn't eat a lot of meat because meat was very expensive, but they did eat meat nonetheless. So I think that it's good to eat meat. You don't have to eat it every day. You don't. You could eat a Middle Eastern cuisine where you eat a little amount of meat, but you eat mainly plant-based food or mainly vegetables, mainly herbs, and you'll be fine. I mean, I've gone for a while just eating a lot of Middle Eastern cuisine. Like there will be days where I'll just eat Middle Eastern food, and I'm like, I haven't eaten meat all day, nothing, and I feel fine. So you don't have to eat meat. I think if you don't want to depend so much on meat, that's actually not a bad idea, because eating too much meat isn't good for you. Just balance it out, limit your meat intake. Don't get rid of meat completely, because there's nutritional value in meat that you can't get in most other foods. There's nutritional value in eggs that you can't get in abundance as you would in other foods. So balance it out, I eat mainly plant-based. I don't eat a whole lot of meat. I don't eat as much. I do eat meat, but I don't eat as much meat as a lot of Americans do. There are Americans who just eating meat like lions, man. They just eat. It's all they eat is meat. I like to balance it out. I like to eat a lot of herbs. I like to eat a lot of things from my garden, a lot of eggplant. I eat a lot of eggplant, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of mint, a lot of garlic. I love pasta, things like that. But I think that carnivorism and veganism are just two opposite extremes. What could you say is the Christian answer to the current border crisis? I am a nationalist, but I am curious what your take on it is. I think we have to show compassion. I think it is a problem that people are just crossing the border. But at the same time, I don't have this opinion that we should just deport everybody. There's a reason why they're coming in here, and there's a vacuum that they're filling. They're filling a labor vacuum. And that is, they're doing a lot of the really tedious and monotonous and laborious work that most people don't want to do. They're making housing cheaper. That's a fact. They make housing cheaper. They make the cost of labor for building homes and buildings cheaper. I don't believe that we should deport them. I think that what we should do is make a system that's modeled off of the old system that we used to use in this country. And that is that we make a system that makes it easy for people to come into this country to work for a limited amount of time, and then they can go home. I think the people who have been living here for a very long time, or for a substantial amount of time, should be allowed to live here to work. I don't really see them as an issue. Most of them don't commit crimes. They're actually quite a huge benefit to our country. A lot of them pay taxes. Every year we get billions of dollars in taxes from these people, because they'll actually use other people's social security numbers to pay taxes. So they're actually very beneficial. Most of them are not the enemy of us. They're not an existential threat. America has been dealing with people crossing the Mexican border into the United States for a long, long time. So I'm not one of these people who thinks that, just shoot them. That's completely evil. Most of these people are decent people. The people who are criminals or who are here to do bad things like drugs and laundering money or doing coyote type business, yeah, we shouldn't tolerate that. But yet again, we will, because there's a ton of money that's crossing the border, billions of dollars every year, from drug cartels who invest money into the United States. And I think that's the reason why it's, the United States is so hesitant to put a serious block on the border. I am Catholic. Not only do we go through the Bible in the Mass, but if we pray the divine office, we are praying many Bible verses. Okay. Yeah, I agree. What is your opinion on Mike? I already said this. I told you this before. Okay, yep, I remember that. The Duggars, yep, complete creeps. That's been proven 100% now. And everyone thought I was wrong when I said the Duggars were creeps, and I was absolutely right. That was how I discovered the bakeries. Cool. Very cool. Shem, Ham, and Jaff of the Human Family. Great. You did theater. Yep. I really enjoyed doing that work on the Human Family. I thought it was really profound, the things that I was reading in those days. I don't understand what's going on here. Never liked Charlie Kirk. Don't like Nick Fuentes, but he ripped him to shreds. I don't trust any of them. I think Charlie Kirk is he's another just typical Republican. And then you have Nick Fuentes, who's just a complete creep, a Nazi creep. That's all he is. Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. Although I wouldn't, I don't know. I think Kirk makes good points, and I agree with a lot of things that he says because I do lean conservative, but I just don't trust these people. Dennis Prager has a lesbian on his show now, Carlin. Oh, I didn't know that. It's been years since I've actually listened to Prager. Ever since he came out saying that pederasty is okay, I don't listen to him. But I will. Now that you mentioned this, I will look this up. Most conservatives are hypocrites. Yep, I agree. So being less than him, the creation would be open to the possibility of inequity and sin. All things fall short of the glory of God. Okay. Another thing with Savage is who his son is, which made me a little skeptical. I think his son is more liberal than him. But Savage did help his son make that Rockstar company, and now his son's a multi-billionaire. Abstaining from meat from time to time. Okay, so yeah, exactly, fasting. Will Trump in 2024 also, do you think if a guy was more right-wing and nationalist than Trump, he could win? I don't know. It's going to be like 3 years from now before that happens, and a lot of things can happen in a year, as everyone here knows. I mean, look at what happened. We had 2019, everything seemed normal. We were going out to eat, we were going to the bookstore, we were drinking coffee, having a great time. And then 2020 came and everything just went to shit. Yeah. So a lot of things can happen in a year. So I don't know what's going to happen. If something happens within the next 3 years that absolutely devastates the country, you could have a nationalist uprising in the political sphere of this country. I don't mean by uprising, I don't mean a coup, but I mean you could have a rise in nationalism in the country more extreme than what we saw in 2017. So I don't know, but I think that Trump more than likely is going to run again, and if he does, he's probably going to win. By the way, I don't really believe Biden won the election. I know that's such an extreme thing to say, and here I am, I'm trying to be like a moderate person, but I don't believe he really won. That's just my opinion. I mean, could be wrong, but I just have difficulty believing that a buzzkill like Biden could win. I could be wrong, though. What is your opinion on the state of the Boers in South Africa? South Africa is a complete and utter hellhole. My father was there back in 2005, I believe, and it was a horrifying country to live in. It's a terrible place. A lot of the white people in South Africa have been leaving. They've been going to Europe. They've been going to Germany. Do not blame them. I think it's a terrible situation, and I think it's absolutely evil what has been happening to the white minority in South Africa. It's completely satanic. South Africa is a scary ass place to live in. It's no joke. Scary place. Tom Riordan, we need a Christian political party. Oh, okay. We don't need a Christian political party. We don't. No, we don't need a Christian political party at all. Because if you have a Christian political party, it's going to become corrupt, just like all the other parties. So I don't agree. If you could make the world a blank slate, what would you remake it with the Ham Shem Japheth paradigm? Oh, you're trying to put me on the spot here. For one thing, how do I say this? Basically, the way that things used to be, where European countries ruled over Africa, Africans were better off under European power. There are even Africans who would tell you that. I think the problem is the abuse of the Africans is what weakened a lot of these empires in terms of their control over Africa. I think that there needs to be a balance where the Europeans rule over Africa, but not in an abusive way, but in a way that helps the Africans, where everyone is happy. In other words, there needs to be a mutual relationship. What we do not need is all this tension building, all this stoking that we've been seeing, where it's always, well, white people did this, white people did that, white people did this, and just stoking up that hatred against the white people. We don't need that. That needs to be gotten rid of. So there needs to be a system where Europeans guide Africans, because Africa is, for the most part, a really, really terrible place to live in. Everybody wants to go to Europe. The Africans want to go to Europe because Europe is a hell of a lot better than Africa. So Africa is better off being controlled by Europe. That way, Europe can make Africa like Europe and model Africa after Europe. And I think Africans would be just a lot happier. Same thing goes with South America. I think, the Spanish Empire ruling them. It would just be a system where, like as the Bible says, Ham serves Japheth and Shem, but then Ham has to be looked after, and you would just have a much more beneficial system where everyone is happy. Have you ever heard about fat acceptance and body positivity movement? Yes, I have. I think it's disgusting. I don't agree with fat shaming people. Like, if somebody is fat, I don't think we should go there and be like, "Oh, you're a fat bastard. Look at you. Ha ha." I don't agree in doing that, because then those people already know that they're fat, and they're not happy with themselves. So to demean them even more than how they demean themselves would just devastate them psychologically. They're already weak psychologically. So if you shame them, you're just going to break them down even more. And you're just going to make them stressed out. I think that what we should do, though, is, I think that, and I'm not a huge fan of this. I'm not like a huge follower of this type of movement, but I think what Jocko Willink is doing is really effective in that he's not shaming people, but what he is doing is he's demonstrating his lifestyle, where he works out, he diets well, he eats clean, and he keeps himself in shape. And I'm not like, an exemplary of fitness, but I do try to keep myself balanced. And I think that Jocko demonstrates that well, and he is a very popular person. And so people looking at him will look at him and look at themselves and be like, "Oh man, I should, maybe go to the gym more." I think that if people who are really fit just demonstrate and not demonstrate themselves, demonstrate their fitness and not be assholes about it, I think that's really helpful. But I don't agree going the opposite extreme and then saying, "Yeah, you're fat, that's wonderful." I don't agree with that, especially with women. I think it's tougher for women than men. I think men who are fat, and by fat, I don't mean like if a man is obese, like he should change, because he's going to die within a couple years or within a couple of months. But I think when a woman is really fat, though, it really messes with them. It's more difficult for them psychologically. The human rights must be based on human dignity. Okay. A while ago, I found out there are people who deny the Holocaust. What are your thoughts on those people? I think that those people are basically Nazis in disguise. Everyone that I have known personally who denied the Holocaust have been people who sympathize with Hitler secretly. They'll tell you, you talk to them long enough, and just one day something slips out of the tongue, and it's like, Hitler wasn't so bad of a guy. Like, every time you meet somebody who's a Holocaust denier, it always comes out. Do you think if Kamala Harris... Oh, another thing also is that people who deny genocides and massacres simply want to repeat them again. I just want to add that. Do you think if Kamala Harris becomes president, there will be depression? I think if Kamala Harris becomes president, like let's say Biden dies and then you have Kamala Harris, the media is going to be glorifying her, and they're going to say she's the first black female president, et cetera, et cetera. And she's going to say some really stupid shit like Sharia law ain't that bad or something. And then there's going to be a whole like right-wing outrage over it, and it's only going to help the Trump camp. It's going to help the right wing in the United States. Will there be a depression? I can't say for certain, but it wouldn't surprise me. One thing I've noticed over the years of living is that the year before any election, something really bad happens. Like 2015 was, I remember it was before the election in 2015. We had all these riots, We had all these riots in Missouri and in Maryland over the whole anti-police thing. Okay, we're back. Like one of those little ass dogs, get like a German Shepherd. A German Shepherd will easily scare boxes away. Are you guys hearing me right? Because YouTube is telling me that I got connection issues. Okay, how about good? I think Hitler was a secret communist working for the Soviet Union. I would provide me evidence. I don't know. I doubt that. Remember you going toe to toe with Michael Brown? Yep. Something is wrong with that guy. Yep, 100%. If the left keeps attacking whites in America, do you think that white terrorism is a possibility? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the reason why I'm like, hey, stop talking this bullshit, because you're pissing off people. People from Balkans are better under Austrians than at any other point. Biden may have not won, but Trump is not in charge of the U.S. That's just believable. Okay. Didn't you say once too that at a zoo in South Africa there were essentially no cages? Yup. No cages. They had like a little chicken wire fence thing, and the freaking lions were there growling at you. It's freaking insane. Should America accept the Boers? I don't see why not. I mean, it would have to be like by individual case, you know. Trump really won. A lot of evangelicals believe Trump was sent by God. Trump is a hit or miss for me. Yeah, I don't know, sent by God. I think the leader is just a reflection of the people. Do you think? Okay, I already read this. Let's see here. Here's a link to an article. I was Hitler's boss. Okay. Where's the link? I don't see it. Is Europe a better place to live in than the US, or are both places crap? I wouldn't say Europe is a better place than the US to live. I think there are aspects of Europe that are better than some aspects in the United States. Like, I think Europeans to a great extent are a little bit more peaceful than Americans. I think Americans are kind of crazy. But Americans are more charitable. Americans are more, they have better hospitality in some cases. Like, for example, when you go into a restaurant in Europe, there's no free refills. There's no side dishes. It's just, here you go. Here's your plate. America, they feed you better. The thing I like about America also is that everything's big. You get bigger stuff. Whereas in Europe, you don't really get that. Also, the problem with Europe, it's economically more unstable than America, because in the United States, we have more of a stockholder economy. So basically, the main investors for companies in the US are the stockholders, the shareholders, people who invest in the company. So like, I buy a stock from a company, I buy a share, I own a part of that company. I own one share of that company. So the main investors for a company are the people. And that's actually a more stable and beneficial system than in Europe, where most companies are funded by banks. Because if the banks go down, then companies will either go down or be devastated. Whereas in the United States, the economy stabilizes itself more efficiently because of the shareholder capitalism that we have here. I would say Europe is more politically unstable to a certain extent. In Europe, in America, it's like, okay, Democrat versus Republican, and it just kind of stays that way. In Europe, you could have some crazy ass Nazi party get popular overnight and win 2 seats in the parliament, like we saw in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, I remember back in 2019, some crazy eugenic party just like took 2 seats in the parliament. Like, what? And then they before that, no, in 2017 they took 2 seats in the parliament. And then in 2019, they were like the most popular party in the regional elections in the Netherlands. They're called the Forum for Democracy Party, and they're Nazis. They're just crazy. They're not like, they're not saying we love Hitler, but they're eugenic. They're extremely Darwinistic in their thinking. So things can go politically south in Europe more quickly. Europeans are much better at writing than Americans. So I don't know. Yeah, Europe's a crazy place, but America's also a crazy ass place too. We got all the serial killers. What's your opinion on the progressive Islamization of Europe? I don't think Europe's ever going to become fully Muslim. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims in Europe, but Europe is. Listen, if the Muslims couldn't control Europe for all these centuries, what makes you think they can do it now? I think eventually the presence of Islamic fundamentalism is just going to spark a really strong nationalist response. And we've already been seeing this within recent years. And I think that it's only going to get worse from here. And I think the presence of Islamic terrorism in Europe has really been more of a benefit to the hard right than anyone else. I believe that the Soviets planted Hitler to build Germany back up in preparation for a second war. Okay, man, I would love to see evidence for that. I just want to say thank you for posting your articles back in 2015, 2016, because it really lit me on fire with creation. Man, I really wish that I could write articles like that again. I just, you know, the saying, ignorance is bliss. In those days, I didn't really know as much as I do now. So when you know too much, you just kind of lose enthusiasm for a lot of things because you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen this before. Oh, this priest, yeah, he's probably a predator. Have you ever wished to travel to Japan? What interested you about Japan? I think it'd be cool to go to Japan. What interested me about Japan was back in 2010, I saw a little documentary on how the rape of Nanking was like hardcore denied by the nationalists in Japan, and I didn't know that. And I realized that there is a huge, crazy nationalistic movement in Japan that's very powerful. It's very influential, very dominating in Japanese politics. And so that led me to conclude that Japan is actually still a threat to the world. Ted, I have seen your debate with that Orthodox convert. That guy has some serious issues. Not all Orthodox converts hate Catholics. No, I don't. You know, I don't believe that, and I'm glad that you're a normal person. Maybe you and I can have a discussion for this YouTube channel one day. Are you going to do another video of the demons that are in Mexico? Sure. I mean, if I see something that's really interesting, yeah, got no issue with that. Anyway, I've been here for over an hour, close to an hour and a half. So actually, I'm going to get going here. It's almost 8 p.m. So, all right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow with a video. And that's it. All right. God bless you guys. Be well.